of a team coming in here. Also, you already had mentioned the folks there at Carlin, and back in the series here, we got Andretti Motorsports again.
Well, Andretti's been like a foundation team for us over the last number of years, right? They were with Sam Schmidt Motorsports, kind of the two teams that had lots of drivers, and they have developed a lot of tremendous drivers as well. We've seen so many great guys like Oliver Askew, Pato, Colton, have all come through Andretti Autosport. Definitely a strong team for sure.
Well, we're getting ready here in just a few moments as we see the cars making their way out here onto the race course at Belle Isle.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to IndyCar Radio and Sirius XM as we can get set to start here with Indy Lights presented by Cooper Tires. We are here in Detroit. Gorgeous day, sunny and 75, and 13 drivers in Indy Lights will pull out onto the racetrack. Hello, folks. My name is Rob Howden. Great to be here, and, of course, throughout the weekend you'll hear the entire IndyCar Radio crew cover our Indy Lights events. Another qualifying run this afternoon. They'll qualify for race number 2 tomorrow morning. A doubleheader weekend here on the streets of Belle Isle. Again, IndyCar Radio host Nick Yeoman will take over things starting tomorrow morning, but I'll be doing the coverage of our Friday action. And again, drivers, this is interesting as Tom Michaels joins me here in the PA booth. Tom, of the only racetrack we have in all of 2021 where the teams have not been here, there's been no testing done here, and none of the drivers have ever driven here. This really is a true level playing field for everybody involved right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Talk a little bit about other series as well. If you haven't been here, you don't have that book to figure out what's going on. Certainly, you're not going to see the people from 9 years ago, the last time they were here.
It. No.
And this track does change from year to year. Because of the harsh winters, as Larry and I were talking about a little bit earlier. But these cars, these drivers, we'll see them get up to speed here fairly quickly. The one thing that they might be a little bit surprised at is the bumpiness of the circuit. And again, we attribute that totally to the idea of Michigan and their winters.
I live about 3 hours north of here in Canada, so I'm very, very used to the harsh winters. Indeed, it does beat up the track a little bit. I will say this. The drivers, of course, getting on track for the first time. I would expect throughout the early part of this session, they're not going to push this hard. It's a longer session, 40-minute session. I'm sure a lot of them have been on iRacing. They've been on the simulators. They've got a feel for where the track goes. But as you said, iRacing does a tremendous job with the bumps, laser scanning all the tracks. But for these drivers in these cars, in the tires, which are a carryover set of tires from the road course event at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, for the most part, I think they're just going to slowly try to come up to speed. There's no sense in making a mistake here. This is that practice session. Just get a feel for it so that you can get back out in qualifying this afternoon to really get at it.
And, of course, they have 2 races here this weekend. So you're wanting to make sure that as we see a little bit, I don't know if that was under braking that we saw the smoke coming out.
I think so, yeah.
Okay. Saw one of the cars that was sort of a little bit of smoke, but we think it was under some hard braking going down into turn number 7. But with 2 races here this weekend, do you play it a little bit more conservative in race number 1 so that you make sure you're there for race number 2?
I don't think anybody's going to play a conservative in this particular series, Tom. It is such a competitive series. Yes, 13 drivers in the field right now. We've had 3 different winners this year, but I think that everybody's focusing on winning that championship, and that's one of the things, obviously, we have to bring up anytime we talk about Indy Lights. The champion getting a $1.25 million scholarship to run in 3 races in the NTT IndyCar Series in 2021. All 3 of the top 3 in points getting an IndyCar test as well, but that champion getting a chance to run 3 races in the IndyCar Series, including the Indianapolis 500. So they all realize that the opportunities that are in front of them now, and I just don't think in any of the races that we have all year long, anyone's not going to be pushing at 100%. This will be interesting. This first session intriguing to me because, again, everybody in a complete level playing field. I would not be surprised to see a lot of pit stops, people making damper adjustments, damper changes, spring changes. They're going to throw a base setup at it. Maybe something from St. Petersburg or something from Sebring. You know, the short course at Sebring is very bumpy. It's where a lot of people test before the street circuits. I have a feeling we're going to see guys do 5 laps adjustment, 5 laps adjustment.
For the folks here at Belle Isle who may not be aware, this is actually the top rung on what's called the Road to Indy. And tell us a little bit about how that stepping stone goes.
Yeah, the Road to Indy is an unparalleled program in terms of junior Formula Car development series around the world. 3 different series, all kind of feeding into each other. The very bottom level, the Cooper Tires USF 2000 Championship. Those drivers in the Tatis USF 17 chassis, around 170 horsepower and limited downforce, of course, on the slicks and wings. So we do get them a feel for the downforce of the car. They move up then to the Indy Pro 2000 category, which is our second rung of the Road to Indy. Same chassis, actually. It's the PM18, but the same Tatis tub, but more of everything. We have more tires, more downforce. We go from 170 horsepower to 250 horsepower. So just more of everything. And then the big jump up into Indy Lights to 450 horsepower, 50 horsepower in push to pass. They get to use that 15 times throughout a race distance. And again, more horsepower, significantly more downforce, a lot more grip, a lot more braking. This car specifically designed by, it's a Dallara. So again, to connect to the NTT IndyCar Series, specifically designed to train these drivers to be able to go into IndyCar. Then, of course, I mentioned it with the Indy Lights, but the scholarship program, worth over $3 million, goes through everything that we do. The drivers coming from USF 2000 win a scholarship to go to Indy Pro 2000, and likewise, Indy Pro 2000's champion winning the scholarship to move up to Indy Lights. It's an unbelievable program, and for drivers like a Spencer Piggott, Oliver Askew, some of these guys that probably wouldn't have made it to IndyCar without that scholarship moving them forward.
As we watch the cars moving around the race course, and Danielle Frost out of Singapore, right now living in Miami, Florida, driving for Andretti. Momentarily at a 1:30.188 was quickest, but now getting knocked back down. It is now David Malukas in the 79 car at a 129.038. Peterson at a 129.342, and Sauer in a 129.385. When did this chassis, which again, I said this earlier, I just loved this. It looks so state of the art as it makes its way around this race course. When did it come online?
Actually, 2015 was our debut of the Dallara IL-15. A little bit of an adjustment for this year, as we've added the Halo type device on the car as well. So an increase of safety. Of course, NTT IndyCar Series has the aero screen. We have the Halo type device, which has been really lauded by all the drivers. Obviously, the increase in safety, but hardly any obstruction whatsoever in view. They say most drivers will tell you they can't really even tell it's there. They can see the full field of view still. So yeah, this is our 6th year with this car with the new Halo type device. We're probably going to run it for another 4, maybe 5 years, because it's such a great chassis, such a great platform, and has, again, provided such a great development level training tool for drivers trying to get to IndyCar.
And what's the engine that we have in here?
The engine we have here is by AER, 450 horsepower as well, inline 4, turbocharged, of course, to give us the top speed that we want. There is a specific torque curve. That's one of the things the drivers have to get used to, of course, when the turbo hits. Makes things interesting in the rain, of course. But 450 horsepower. And again, that 50 horsepower of push to pass, something that we want to train these drivers on here as well, right? Push to pass, obviously something that gets leveraged quite a bit in IndyCar. We want to make sure we train them here as well.
Kyle Kirkwood now at the top of the chart at a 127.354 in car number 28. Peterson, that's Benjamin Peterson out of Copenhagen, Denmark, living in Seattle, Washington. And Peterson second quick at a 127.906. Frost is back there to third now at a 128.3.
Yeah, Christian Pedersen's been a driver that we've watched for quite a while here. Ben Pedersen, Christian's his father, actually. We'll get into the whole program there, because that's a really interesting program. Christian Pedersen is the father of Benjamin Pedersen. Henry Malukas, the father of David Malukas, both those drivers under what is the HMD Motorsports with Global Racing Group team. HMD Motorsports started a number of years ago for David Malukas. They ran in Indy Pro 2000, then moved up to the Indy Lights Series. These two fathers were actually at a different, and fathers and team owners, because Global Racing Group has been around a long time, very connected as well with the Dirtfish rally program. So we have a driver off the racetrack here. That's coming to the final corner of the track for pit in, I think, isn't it not?
Yeah, that's just before pit in.
Yeah. Not sure which driver that is. We're trying to see which drivers worked their way back here, but someone's come to a stop.
So I think we got the red flag out right now.
But just to cap off the thought there, they were together with another team last year, with another series last year because we were on hiatus with Indy Lights. Well, coming back, they finally got together, talked to each other, and said, hey, let's potentially work together. HMD has the full team. Global Racing Group comes in with a couple of drivers in Benjamin Pedersen, and, of course, the driver who is very impressive, leading the points second in points right now, Linus Lundqvist, who won the FR America Series last year. They've kind of come together to what is kind of a super team right now because they've got a really good staff of people. They brought on a lot of good players, engineers, mechanics. It's kind of them against Andretti right now. Then you've got Juncos Racing, who's been multi-time champions and race winners in the series. You've got Carlin back. There's a lot of excitement on the team level as well as the driver level. That's Malukas, actually. Yeah.
As I mentioned, Kyle Kirkwood is the quickest runner right now with 127.354. We're under a red flag here to take care of that car, which is stalled coming off the final turn before the pit entrance. Kyle Kirkwood, I watched him. It was not part of the Road to Indy program. It was that F4 program and the other that Honda has going. And he won just about everything there for a while before he made his way into the Road to Indy program.
Tom, you could use that term, he won about everything, on everything he's done so far, to be honest, right? Because, again, like you said, he was ran in the F4 program before he came into the Road to Indy, kind of dominated the action there, won the championship. Came over as well, then run USF 2000. At the same time he was running USF 2000, he was also in the F3 program at that point when it first got started with a handful of cars. Dominated there, absolutely flat dominated there. Came into USF 2000 and ended up dominating the season. Had a couple of people challenge, but he showed his race savviness, his racecraft. He was there. He would make mistakes. He would take advantage of other people's mistakes. He won the championship in USF 2000, so that's 3 titles already. And then 2 years ago, he won the Indy Pro 2000 championship. He's raced 4 series, and he's won 4 championships already. And that gave him the scholarship, of course, to come to Indy Lights last year. But with the hiatus, that scholarship then pushed off into 2021. And now he's here with Andretti. He's already won a race so far this season. One at St. Petersburg. In the hunt in the points, if you look, he's P3 in the points, only 27 markers back. He needs some more momentum, but Kyle Kirkwood is a young American driver that everybody is watching right now.
Well, let's take a look and see whether we can tell exactly what happened there and which car is stricken out there.
It's David
on
Malukas.
The race course.
It's our point leader, David Malukas. Here's David coming out, maybe just a little wide at the exit, and got mid-corner oversteer, and the rear end came around. That is pretty significant damage. Yeah. That's rather left front and left rear damage, Tom. And again, one of the things I was worried about with this particular track, right? It's bumpy. We've had one session on the track with the IMSA guys. Not a lot of rubber put down as of yet. Doesn't take a lot here to make a little mistake and lose a car like that.
Well, here in this part of the world, these guys are going to be racing quite a bit. Over July 4th weekend, the entire Road to Indy situation is going to be a part of the IndyCar weekend at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, which is not that far away in Lexington, Ohio, which is near Mansfield. And because of the cancellation of Toronto, the Road to Indy right now has a standalone for all 3, scheduled for the first weekend in October at Mid-Ohio as well.
That will actually be our finale right now. The finales were going to be split. We were going to be wrapping up USF 2000 and Indy Pro 2000 at New Jersey Motorsports Park at the end of August. With the cancellation of Toronto, that brings everyone together because Indy Lights will be at Portland. Indy Lights will also be at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca as well. But now with this, obviously the cancellation of Toronto, we're doing a triple header at Ohio with all 3 of the series. I'm going to cap things off there. It's a tough racetrack, as you know, Tom. You've called a lot of races there. You know, I've called a number of races together there as well. It's a very tough racetrack, tough race to pass, track to pass on, and I think it's going to be a very challenging finale, especially if we go down having a couple of drivers in the middle of a battle.
And it is tough to go when you have these multiple race weekends because it's not like you get in there and you can just aim toward one or the other. Have a couple of races for each weekend, and sometimes we've seen 3 races in a weekend for Road to Indy cars. Still under the red flag here. Kirkwood quickest, 1 minute 27.354. Pedersen, a 127.906. Frost at a 128.375. Lundqvist, 128.787. And Peroni at a 128.897.
Alex Peroni is one of the drivers I think we should see step things up here. He's a really interesting storyline for Alex from Australia. Yeah, they're bringing the 78 in now. Peroni from Australia ran last year, finished 10th in the FIA Formula 3 Championship, and has shown very good pace on these kind of challenging street circuits. A winner at Monaco, had a pretty bad wreck a couple of years ago and bounced through that. And just a great young man. He's the guy that's coming back here with Carlin. He's teamed up with Christian Bogle, who's a rookie in the series here this year. Peroni has got better and better, Tom, through his first 6 races of the year. His last races on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a couple of top 5 finishes and capped off with a third, his first podium of the year. You can feel the momentum for Carlin. You can feel the momentum for Alex Peroni, and I think that plays well into a place here where, seriously, he has not near as much testing as everybody else has done, right? It just doesn't have the budget to do the testing. Carlin coming back after being on the away from the series for a couple of years. So you're behind the 8 ball in terms of HMD Motorsports with Global Racing Group. You're behind the Andretti Autosports. So I like the fact that Carlin is just slowly picking things up, and I think this is the perfect place for Peroni maybe to get his first race win.
Well, just under 24 minutes to go of a 40-minute session here. We're at Belle Isle. It's an absolutely gorgeous day. Just some little wispy clouds out there, and that's about it. Mostly blue sky here. We're happy to have you along, whether you're here on the internet with us or here on site.
We'll take the opportunity to have a look at this replay again, but as we do, we'll say hello to everybody tuning in on the Road to Indy TV app on Sirius XM 205 with a tune-in app with the IndyCar Radio Network. You can also watch on roadtoindy.tv. And there's that, just a little wiggle mid-corner. Looks like potential maybe early entry a bit there for David Malukas. Tom got on it. You can see the rear end start to step back out. And this place here, when a lot of the road, the roads could be crowned a little bit. There's a little bit of a drop off, and that rear end just kind of took off on him. And at that point, I think you're kind of a passenger. You can't really do much about it, right? The car's been lost. You're going to try to wheel it, and the walls come up pretty quickly. I guarantee you that David Malukas, who is 6th in the order right now, be banging his head over that one. Malukas, with 3 wins already this year, comes in as the point leader. Has had and shown great comfort and great support for his team. Very excited about the way they have momentum. 129.038, the best lap for him. Toby Sowery for Juncos Racing in 7th spot. Devlin DiFrancesco, the Canadian Italian rather, living now in Miami in the 8th spot. Nikita Lastishkin, the Russian-born driver from now living in Los Angeles, is in 9th. 10th is Stingray Robb out of Payette, Idaho. You got Christian Bogle for Carlin out of Louisiana in 11th. Antonio Saravalli from Canada for Passera Racing in 12th. And Robert McGinnis, no time yet for Robert in that number 27 for Andretti Autosport. But you can see drivers taking their time. And this is the tough part of this red flag here right now, is that there's only 22 minutes to go, and these guys need track time on this track. Look at what we see. Kirkwood P1, Benjamin Pedersen back by just a half a second. But then you got a second and a half for Peroni, 2 seconds for Sowery, 3.5 seconds for DiFrancesco. These guys have just got 4 or 5 laps in the books, Tom. They're losing valuable time right now learning this racetrack.
Well, the track record here was set back in 2000 by Johnny Keane. That was a 1 minute 21.840, and I have to think that far back, that would have been this same configuration of race courses. The cars make their way back out on track. We've talked about it on the PA this morning. The fact that distance between turn 2 and turn 3, that has undergone a change. It was a long straightaway at one point. It was shortened up at one point. Now it's back to the longer configuration once again, as up on the big screen, taking a look at part of that distance between turns 1, 2, and 3. And here we are at turn 3 right now, taking a look at some of the cars making their way going around. And we're just a little more than a half distance left to go here in this practice session at 20 minutes and 30 seconds.
Antonio Saravalli, the Passera Racing Machine, out on sticker tires. We're kind of wondering why they're going to stickers here right now, whether or not thinking about potentially scuffing them in a little bit. But drivers back out on the racetrack, as you said. I actually got a message from Steve Whittick from TSO Ladder and Trackside Online, and I was wondering as well, Steve, obviously watching that video a couple times, it looks like potentially Malukas may have hit the curbing on the inside of the racetrack. I could see, I talked about an early mid-corner correction. It might have actually been him tapping the curb, and we've seen that happen before. You have to be very precise on your entries here at Detroit. You know, we've even seen a guy like Scott Dixon, the Iceman, make a minor mistake here, tap that, the wall as the apex, and it sends you to the outside of the racetrack. And you have to be so precise in all of your turn-in points of this track. And again, good to see drivers back up to speed. We'll build some heat into the tires here. Again, just under 20 minutes remaining. And as Tom mentioned, picture-perfect day. If there's any you can complain about, it's only essentially the Midwest or Michigan humidity. That's about it, right? I think it's about 70% humidity out there. But if you're from Michigan, you're used to that kind of thing. I know I am living up in Ontario, so it's something we get used to. But absolutely beautiful. Sunny and 75, like you said, just a little bit of clouds off in the distance. Otherwise, couldn't ask for much more to start out this year's Detroit Grand Prix.
You're not seeing any cicadas up north, are you?
I actually haven't been home because of the COVID situation since March. So I've been I've been staying out in my RV in California. I can't wait to go back. I'll head back to Canada after mid-Ohio. Obviously, the border closed, but I've been staying down here because I'm having to quarantine back and forth every time I came back home. So I've been down here enjoying what it's like, Tom, being on the road, right? How many races we go to from track to track. And you mentioned Mid-Ohio, a couple of races coming up. Before we go to Mid-Ohio at the end of this month, in fact, next weekend, we go straight to Road America.
Right.
So we got lots of racing. Only Indy Lights is part of the Road to Indy program here this weekend, but the entire family of Road to Indy series will once again reconnect when we head up to Road America. Just around the lake there into Wisconsin up to Elkhart Lake, and a fantastic facility. And what I love about it, it really kind of shows, does it not, Tom, the uniqueness of IndyCar racing and Formula Car racing here on the Road to Indy. We go from a tough, challenging street circuit like the one here on Belle Isle to that wide open, flowing Road America, then to the undulating Mid-Ohio, right? The three different tracks we go through for Indy Lights are really pressure these drivers in a big way.
Yeah, and that's what gets them the experience that they need to make that next step up into the Indy cars. Well, Kirkwood right now at a 1:27.354. He has completed 6 laps, and that is the quickest. Pedersen at that 1:27.9. Frost, Sowery, and Lundqvist. That's your top 5, followed by Peroni, Malukas, who has had the problem out on the race course, Bogle, DeFrancesco, and Listoshkin. That gets you down through the top 10.
Tom, interesting, got a report here from pit lane, actually from Passera Racing. The reason why they had to go to the sticker tires, they came through the debris field after Malukas came, punctured a tire. What we do for the drivers here in Indy Lights is they get 4 sets of fresh Cooper tires on a weekend for 5 sessions. But they only get, obviously they're missing 1, right? So what do you do for the opening session? We give them a carryover set. So 1 set of used tires from the last race, they're able to bring with them, get them marked, get them approved by the series. They bring them in for that opening session, this particular session here. You don't want them going out on fresh tires. We let them go out on a used set of tires. But you only get that 1 used set. And then, of course, with Saravalli having that puncture, got to go to the fresh set. So really a little unlucky here for Antonio Saravalli, who I think has been one of the really big bright spots. The whole Passera Racing team coming together really only a couple months before the start of the season in Alabama when we went to Barber Motorsports Park after things were pushed back a little bit. They were able to lease a car. They started putting it together. They got the halo installed. Really, this car and team came together so late, and Antonio's been fantastic. He's been really steady. He's had some pretty good runs, a couple of top 10 finishes, and I've been very impressed with what he's done. Only a little bit of time, not even a full season in Indy Pro 2000, but they really wanted to get him here into Indy Lights, and he's been, I think, a really bright spot of the 2021 season thus far.
Toby Sowery in the 51 had moved to the top at a 1:26.987, but now Kyle Kirkwood goes back up there on the point. Kyle Kirkwood at a 1:26.556. So again, just practice here. We'll have another session coming up later on today. Right now, just Yeah, we'll see how much time that we actually have
yeah,
here.
about 15 and a half
15
minutes still
yeah.
to go. 15 and a half minutes left to go in this practice session. We'll qualify at 2:30 this afternoon, qualifying for race number 2 at 9:30 tomorrow morning, and then we'll have our first wheel-to-wheel action just after the noon hour, 12:10 p.m. on Saturday for the first of 2 races here in the Indy Lights program, our Indy Lights Grand Prix of Detroit, presented by Cooper Tires. Alex Peroni now to the top of the charts, a 126.395, and times are going to fall pretty significantly as these drivers start to get a feel for the racetrack. They're all being pretty smart, stand a little bit, a little away from the wall, maybe a foot or so away from the wall. You can always get up to the edge, and that's one of the things I say about a street circuit when you compare it to maybe a natural terrain road course. You don't know where the edge is until you go over it, right? And on a track like Mid-Ohio, for example, Tom, one that you're very, very familiar with, you go over it coming out of the keyhole, you drop a wheel in the dirt, you send up some dust, you're okay. You go over the line here, you're in the wall, you've damaged the left rear, and you're out of the session, right? We saw obviously the damage for David Malukas. I don't know that they'll be able to get Malukas back on the racetrack. So better to tiptoe your way towards that limit, especially if you've never been here before, like all 13 of our drivers have.
McGinnis now has turned the time. He's got 4 laps in. He had not turned the time before we went to the red flag. He's at a 129.1, which puts him as 12th right now. Peroni at the top at 126.395. Kirkwood, Sowery, Pedersen, and now Listoshkin moves into the number 5 position at a 127.168.
Nikita Lastoshkin in the number 59 for HMD Motorsports, veteran of the road to Indy, started in USF 2000, spent some time there before moving into Indy Pro 2000, and very focused. 30 years of age, the oldest driver we have on the grid, but Nikita, a very consistent race car driver, works as a driving instructor for midweek from Monday to Friday. And we're really happy to have him here in Indy Lights with us this year. And he's been pretty strong, had some good runs, and has been very consistent as well. As you said, currently P5 for Lastoshkin. Kyle Kirkwood back to the top of the charts now, 126.201. We're going to just keep talking about the time dropping over the next 13 or so minutes because these guys are just going to get more and more comfortable. I did see a couple of the cowls come off. Front cowl came off in a couple of cars, Tom, during that stoppage. As I expected, maybe some spring or damper changes because they really have no idea what this track is like. Yeah, you can lean towards what you've done at St. Petersburg in the past, Toronto in the past, but Detroit has its own flavor and its own character. Like you said, it's quite bumpy, so the drivers and teams will be working on, of course, ride height, the rake of the car. How by rake I mean how much higher the rear is in the front of the car, because that's kind of some of the dynamics of the way the shock packages work. We have some very, very talented engineers in the paddock, and as you said, Tom, this road to Indy, not just for drivers, but for teams as well and for engineers. We've seen a number of our young engineers work their way in to IndyCar.
You had mentioned perhaps changing springs, dampers. Most of us know about springs, not as familiar with the damper situation. What are you talking about there?
That's the shocks, like on your car. I think in Formula Car racing, you can call it shocks. Most people call them dampers, but just like the shock absorber in your car, as your car bounces over the bumps, those shock absorbers will handle that, and the shocks are designed to be able to be minorly, not hugely adjustable, but adjustable to the point where you can adjust the compression and the release of the shock as well, the other side of it. So the way that they're able to adjust all these shocks is what allows the engineers to really take the opportunity to kind of set themselves apart. The engineers who know what to do will have a car that's able to handle the bumps a little better.
Well, a big move forward here by the 17 car, Devlin DeFrancisco. He is up to a 126.445. So now we are down through 2, 4, 6, 8. Shouldn't do math in public, but 8 cars which are in the 126s now.
Well, I'll give you guys the benefit of the doubt because obviously with the screen that we have, we actually can't see the numbers of where they are, so we're trying to kind of pick out where they are. What I'm seeing right now, when you bring up Devlin DeFrancesco, is the fact that Andretti's got a pretty good handle on this racetrack right now. They've currently got Kirkwood in second, Frost in fourth, and DeFrancesco in fifth spot. So they got a good feel. Toby Sowery, though, for Juncos Racing now to the top of the charts. Here's a guy who really likes to hustle the car around. Sowery in his second season here in Indy Lights. Was actually the teammate of David Malukas a couple years ago in 2019 in Sowery from Cambridge, England. A very talented driver, race winner back in 2019. Expecting him to grab a win here pretty soon. A couple of really good finishes at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. 2 podiums. Tom, a third in the opening race, second in race number 2. Really battled it out with the HMD Motorsports and Global Racing Group drivers. David Malukas and Linus Lundqvist were the drivers he was fighting. He was kind of felt like the best of the rest. He was kind of right there scrapping him. Linus was able to win on Saturday. On Friday. Malukas won on Saturday in that unique Thursday, Friday, Saturday race. So I just feel there's a lot of momentum for Toby Sowery. His first year with Juncos Racing as well. There's a different culture in there. He's got to get to know all the engineers. And, Tom, I think he's really starting to peak here mid-season.
Well, right now, Sowery is second quick as we now have 3 cars in the 125s. Kyle Kirkwood in the 28 at 125, 440. Toby Sowery at a 125, 845. And then Frost at a 125, 969 in the 68 car. So we continue to chop down on that time. Still well over the track record of a 121.8 set back in 2000 by Johnny Kane.
21 years ago, right? Totally different package, totally different tires. Obviously, the tires back then significantly stickier than what we have right now. Cooper Tires provides us with such a fantastic tire. I think maybe more focused on durability a little bit to be able to go. Obviously, we don't do pit stops in Indy Lights, so the tires got to last the 40 to 45 laps. We turn sometimes, so depending on the particular event. So again, we look at some of those records that we continue to break. Our new Stellara IL-15, when we brought it out, we were breaking records like crazy at a lot of the racetracks. But when you come to a place we haven't been to in a long, long time, you have to go further back into the particular cars. And like, as you said, I don't know that the 2000 was exactly the same layout. You're thinking that potentially
Right.
It was? I'd have to go back.
It may or may not.
Yeah, right. It doesn't take much. A little bit of a change to the racetrack can add a second or two.
And we watched as one of the cars going down into turn number 7, hard under braking and throwing up some tire smoke, maybe flat-spotted a tire perhaps.
And Tom, another, obviously we talk about the drivers coming close to the walls, right? That's one of the things that you start to push. How much can I rotate a car in the corner? Let me use more of the track at the exit. Well, one of the first things you keep doing is you're pushing your braking zones, right? Your first couple of laps, you've got a really long braking zone. You're onto the brake early. Well, you keep trying to get that, trying to close that braking zone down, make it shorter and shorter. And a lot of the team guys will tell you, you got to get on that brake early, get that nose to dive, get it down, get it planted so the car can take a set. And then the key's getting off the brake fast enough so you can carry more speed into the apex of the corner.
7 minutes, 38 seconds left to go here in this practice session for the Indy Lights cars. The folks here at Belle Isle will have the WeatherTech cars coming back out here momentarily after this session is over. Kirkwood, Frost, Sowery, DeFrancesco, and Lundqvist is your top 5 here as we run late in the session.
It's interesting. You look at the list. Now, for me, my mind always goes through the stats, right? So many race wins. Kyle Kirkwood, champion in USF 2000 and Indy Pro. Daniel Frost, multi-time race winner in Indy Pro. He was actually supposed to run Indy Lights last year, Tom, but of course with the series being on hiatus after we got stopped at St. Petersburg when COVID-19 reared its ugly head, he elected, instead of just being on the shelf for a year, came back and ran Indy Pro 2000 another year and ran with a different team, turned 3 motorsports and scored the win in the opening round and battled his way into a solid position in the points. Then you've got Toby Sowery, multi-time winner, as I said, in Indy Lights. You got Linus Lundqvist, who has now already won 2 races on this year, won a ton, dominated the action in the FRA series last year. DeFrancesco was second last year in the Indy Pro 2000 championship, his first year running here in the U.S., having spent a lot of time over in Europe. And indeed, Kyle Kirkwood, first driver, underneath the 125 mark, a 124.951, just over a half a second separating your top 5.
And so you go down through 125 for Sowery, Frost, Lundqvist, DeFrancesco, and Lastashkin. The Russian at a 125.985.
Tom, that's solid. That is solid for Nikita. Again, 30 years of age, a couple of podiums throughout the career. wasn't the guy that was winning races or winning championships, but was always super steady. Spent a couple years in USF 2000 after having a really good run in F1600. He's just been that guy that's always been strong, top 10, middle of the top 10, has been able to put in good results. He's a rookie here this year in Indy Lights, and man, this is we've seen him with a couple of pretty good runs. I think he was the best, at Barber. I think he was a couple top 10s at Barber and St. Petersburg. He's going to be 8th to 11th probably for Nikita. That's what he's looking to get. But where he sits now, P6, that's a pretty solid run at 125.985. So Lastos can pretty happy, I would think, in the HMD Motorsports number 59.
And Robert McGinnis, who did not run in the session prior to our red flag, he is now up into 8th quick at 126.154. And as I say that, I'm not sure who was it that moved around him there. Maybe Pedersen?
Peroni.
I don't think
Peroni. Alex
okay,
Peroni.
Peroni.
Yeah. Peroni jumping up into the 6th spot. Lastos goes back to 7th. Pedersen 8th. Robert McGinnis 9th. And Christian Bogle 10th. I'll tell you a storyline that we'll pick up right now, and we'll figure out whether or not it actually stays as a storyline. But point leader David Malukas in the number 79, the driver who brought the red flag out early after the incident where he tagged the wall coming out of what it was the penultimate corner before he come into the pits. This is going to put him significantly behind the 8 ball. And this is not like it's happening at a Mid-Ohio or a track like a Laguna Seca where he's had a chance to test on before or he's ever driven before. David's got 4 laps on this racetrack. We're going to go qualifying this afternoon at 2:30, and he is going to be, if you think about it, we have 4 minutes to go. We're going to get probably 3 more laps, and he's going to be almost 15 to 20 laps behind everybody else on this weekend. That's going to be really tough for David. He's a tremendously talented young driver, but the fact that he's never been here before means he's going to have to kind of tiptoe around in qualifying this afternoon.
Kirkwood continues to lead it now with just over 3.5 minutes to go in a 40-minute session here. Kyle Kirkwood, car number 28, 1 minute 24.951. Sowery at a 125.098, but now Sowery is kicked back to 3rd quick because Peroni moves into that 2nd position at a 128.028.
It probably shouldn't come as any surprise with Kirkwood being good here. He won at St. Petersburg, right? So, again, another tough concrete wall-lined street circuit where Kirkwood was able to get the victory in the Andretti Autosport number 28. Daniel Frost, his teammate in the 68, now moving up into 2nd. Frost, another driver with success on road courses. His first ever Road to Indy victory coming in Toronto a couple of years ago for Exclusive Autosport in the Indy Pro 2000 category. McGinnis, Robert McGinnis out of nowhere, but it's an Andretti 1-2-3. Robert McGinnis out of Mount Kisco, New York, in the 27 goes P1 with a 124.928. How about 0.09 of a second separating your top 4 right now? This is what we're getting. And drivers starting to lay things down now, folks. Linus Lundqvist now goes to P1. Make it under 0.2 for the top 6. It's Lundqvist, McGinnis, Kirkwood, Frost, Peroni, and Sowery. All within now 1.12 seconds. A Sowery quicker goes up to P4. Just over a 10th separating the top 6 drivers.
Lundqvist up there into that top position, a 124.906. Just barely ahead by 0.02 ahead of McGinnis. And now Peroni to the top. Peroni at a 1 minute 24.545.
Now, here's what we got here, Tom. Obviously, tires starting to get a lot of heat in them, right? We got some good run, and the driver's getting more comfortable. But let's add in the fact that we're burning off some fuel here as well. We've got 17, 18 laps into the books here now, so these cars are starting to get a lot lighter. McGinnis with only 12 laps in. His car will have another 6 laps for the fuel still in that tank. So everybody's starting to get quick here near the end. A minute and a half remaining. And Alex Peroni for Carlin Racing, the young Aussie. A 124.545, 10th last year in the Formula 3 Series, the FIA Formula 3 Championship. And great to have Alex joining us here. You can see drivers starting to hustle around, Tom. They've got these cars rotating mid-corner, maybe getting on the throttle a little earlier. Every lap, they're going a little deeper, a little earlier on the throttle, a little more rotation, getting a good feel for this racetrack.
Peroni, Frost, Lundqvist, McGinnis, and Kirkwood. That's the top 5 right now, inside a minute to go. This is practice. Qualifying comes up later on this afternoon at 2:30. for the Indy Light Series.
I think that could be Toby Sowery into pit lane. Indeed, the number 51, that white and green trademark colors of Juncos Racing. We've seen drivers like Kyle Kaiser, who you mentioned was able to bump Fernando Alonso to the Indianapolis 500 in that thrilling qualifying session at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, a really big highlight for the Juncos Racing team. Sowery into pit lane in the 51. The Englishman now P3. Peroni still up top. Wow, would this be big for Alex and Carlin to be able to come in here, opening session, and show the progression that they've had over the last 3 weekends. And the interesting thing, you mentioned when this car came out back in 2015, our new Dallara IL-15 back then, 6 years ago. Carlin Racing made their debut at St. Petersburg that weekend, Tom, in that brand new race car, and they swept the weekend. They won both races. So Carlin knows how to set up a car as well for a street circuit.
As we come down, checkered flag is out. They'll come around to complete their laps. Frost now at the top, 1 minute 24.303. Peroni, Kirkwood, Sowery, and Lundquist. Now, what they do is, here at this racetrack and many others, is they actually time them before you get to start finish. That way, during sessions, the cars can hit the timing light and then hit the pits rather than have to burn things off with a long out lap. So
yeah,
I think we've got pretty much just about everybody done.
See from the shot there, a couple guys just still rolling here at the end. Daniel Frost, the Singapore driver, the number 68. At the fastest time, a 124.3030. I don't think yet Peroni came across the line, not able to go any quicker that time by. So Daniel Frost in the number 68 for Andretti Autosport, the Denjet machine, P1. No, Kirkwood on the final lap. Kyle Kirkwood on his 20th lap, just as we're calling it, flies through. Listen, is McGinnis still out there? We're trying to see if a couple guys still. There's Daniel Frost. He does not go any quicker on his final circuit. Rob is the only driver, I think, Stingray Rob, who has not come into pit lane as of yet. He's currently in the 11th spot. So Kyle Kirkwood, here I am talking about Daniel Frost, trying to give him the props, and Kirkwood steals the thunder away from his teammate. But it's a 1-2 Andretti run here to start the weekend. The only practice session of the event, as we have qualifying starting this afternoon for race 1 at 2:30. A 124.242 for Kyle Kirkwood, 124.303 for Daniel Frost, a 124.545 for Alex Peroni, still solid for the Carlin driver. Juncos Racing's Toby Sowery in the 51 in 4th, and Linus Lundquist rounding out the top 5. Robert McGinnis ends up in 6th. Devlin DeFrancesco in 7th. Benjamin Pedersen 8th. Nikita Lastishkin 9th. 10th is Antonio Saravalli. 11th, Stingray Robb. 12th, Christian Vogel. And 13th is David Malukas. There's up on the big screen, 124.242 for Kyle Kirkwood. Tom, looking pretty good coming out of the gate.
Absolutely, and boy, for a practice session, pretty exciting. Getting so many 2, 4, 6, 8, 7 in the 124s. So it's going to be good qualifying coming up later on, and a couple of good races this weekend, tomorrow and Sunday.
No doubt. We'll keep an eye on David Malukas, the point leader, with only 4 laps in after contact early. Again, 2:30 this afternoon for qualifying for race number 1. Qualifying for race 2 tomorrow morning at 9:30. 12:10 for race number 1 tomorrow. And, of course, Sunday morning before the NTT IndyCar Series main event, the Detroit Grand Prix. 10:35 a.m. start time for race number 2. I will be back this afternoon along with Tom for qualifying at 2:30. Saturday and Sunday, it'll be the full IndyCar radio crew. Nick Yeoman, Mark Janes, and Davey Hamilton in the booth. Of course, we'll have Michael Young and Jake Query out on the course as well. Joel Sebastianelli and Ryan Marine will be swapping in with me down on pit lane. Again, looking forward to what should be a tremendous weekend here in the 4th event of the series. 20 rounds in total for the Indy Lights presented by Cooper Tires. This event brought to you by Cooper Tires, our main event. So looking forward to 2 great races. Thank you so much for tuning in here on Sirius XM. We say hello to those and goodbye to those of you as well on the Road to Indy TV app. We are back once again, 2:30 qualifying for Indy Lights.